Hello and welcome to the Leaders Lounge, episode number one. I'm honored to be joined by Nitin Kartik, who is, by introduction, is Director of Product Marketing at Carbin. Is that how it's pronounced?
Carbine. Hey, Dan. Really good to see you. And yes, the company is called Carbine. We're
Mhm.
based in New York, and we're the leading cloud native provider of emergency call handling solutions. And yes, I am Director of Product Marketing at Carbine. There you go.
Yeah, no problem. So, you've started your career. I mean, I'm not sure if this was the first place you worked, but at SiriusXM. Is that right? And you've worked at other places like TomTom, Amazon. You were even, I think, on the BBC as a subject matter expert for TomTom. Is that right?
Yeah, Dan, let me maybe tell you a little bit about myself. So, in fact, let's start maybe in reverse chronological order. So, right now, I serve as Director of Product Marketing at Carmine, and we're a public safety technology company. And most of our clients are government agencies. Think about call centers that handle 911 calls. So, these are public sector agencies. And we provide cloud native software to help them upgrade from the traditional software that they have, which is very kind of a legacy technology. The legacy vendors, they come in, they install all the machines and everything in their offices, and they need to maintain all of that. It's a big challenge for them, especially with COVID and people being distributed and so on. We found a huge surge in demand for services like ours. So I head up product marketing. Prior to Carbine, I have been with a few different industries. I've been in the healthcare space. I've been at PPD as head of consumer marketing, and PPD is in a very different space. It's still, I still consider PPD doing the Lord's work in terms of, during the COVID era. PPD was one of the companies that was leading the charge in recruiting um, patients for clinical trials. So, new vaccines were coming out, and in order to make the vaccines work, you needed people to take the trials and confirm that everything is okay. So PPD, we were leading the charge in that. So as head of consumer marketing, I was responsible for running our marketing services so that we could recruit patients for these clinical trials. I've also been at other public safety technology companies. I've been at a company called Rapid SOS as Director of Strategic Partnerships and Marketing, where I have been responsible for a lot of the major partnerships that we handled. Rapid SOS is also serving um, customers similar to Carbine in the public safety space. So this is back to making 911 calls. So that was very good. I've also been at large tech companies. You mentioned Amazon. So, for example, Amazon has a division which handles their audiobooks, and that is called Audible. And so I served as director of partnerships marketing at Audible. And I myself am a huge fan of audiobooks. And so it was really kind of a dream come true to work at company like Amazon, especially helping with audiobooks. And then, yes, I have been with TomTom. TomTom is, many people know TomTom for the handheld GPS devices. Many years ago, before Google Maps and Apple Maps and Waze, that was the hottest gift. I remember during Christmas, oh, you're getting a GPS for Christmas. Oh my God, that was amazing. So that's how, TomTom kind of started. And then, of course, when the industry shifted, TomTom still, is in business now and doing well in terms of HD mapping for self-driving cars, these kinds of technologies. So I was helping on the business development and marketing side in order to help get customers to use these advanced services that TomTom was offering. And SiriusXM prior to that as director of infotainment services marketing. Infotainment, many people know SiriusXM in terms of Howard Stern and the music and all of that. But what many people don't realize is SiriusXM is a major provider of in-car infotainment services, information and entertainment. So things like real-time traffic information, real-time fuel prices, weather forecasts, even stock information, stock price information, things like that. So a lot of these car dash systems, they actually use Series XM technology. So I was heading up a lot of the marketing to make a lot of that work. So yes, yeah, that's a quick rundown on my background. So a variety of different industries, and one of the things that all these industries have in common, like many other industries, is the need for recruiting, and that's where a company like yours comes in, right? So your company, you're focusing on recruiting, is that right, Dan?
But yeah, we're a recruiting company, and yeah, I obviously reached out to you, and but yeah, we do a lot in the US and in the UK. Obviously, I'm British, you can tell from my accent. But yeah, we specialize in sales, marketing, recruitment, tech as well. But it's interesting to chat to someone with your background, because I'm always interested in what sort of gets people started in these fields. Because I know, like, your background using your LinkedIn, I think it's you got a bachelor's from Illinois, you went to Stanford, you've even got an MBA from Booth. So how did you fall into marketing? Was it a conscious decision, or did you just fall into it?
Yeah, yeah, that's actually a very good question. And I think many people these days may find that the degrees that we pursue in college may or may not match 100% with what we end up doing or what we find our passion in. In fact, I'm reminded that there's a saying that education is what remains after everything that we learn in college is forgotten, right? So the idea that education is not the calculus and the physics and that's all good, but of course education is a lot more than that. And so in that sense, yes, I started off cutting my teeth in my bachelor's in computer science, and so I started off kind of in that engineering side, and I found that for me that was great. It helped me hone my technical skills, but I really loved being closer to the industry, being closer to the market, being closer to customers, all of that. And I then made that shift over to the business side, where I wanted to focus more closer to customers and closer to the market, closer to the industry. And a lot of these positions that I've had have really helped me hone those skills in various different industries. And Dan, one thing interesting when I see this from various different industries is how similar the challenges are, right? Sometimes we think that different industries have completely separate challenges. And on the one hand, yes, it is true, but some of the challenges are the same. For example, all industries are struggling with competitive pressures. We talked about Sirius XM, right?
Mhm.
In the days gone by, people thought of Sirius XM as a monopoly because satellite radio, there were actually two separate companies, Sirius and XM, and satellite radio merged, so forming Sirius XM. There was no other satellite radio company in the world. And so, in a sense, you could say that they were a monopoly, but that was the wrong way to look at it because they were competing not with satellite radio, but with any form of audio. It could be music, like Spotify. There was Pandora at the time, which now actually Pandora has joined SiriusXM. AM/FM radio, the free radio that you listen to in the car, that is a competitor. There are many people who, they don't like to pay, and that radio is great. It's got news, it's got sports, it's got some good stuff, talk, and so on. At TomTom, competitive pressures, right? So initially, TomTom was one of the kings when it came to GPS technology. And then, the whole world changed when you had things like Google Maps and Apple Maps and Waze and all of that. And people said, you know what, I don't need yet another device. So they struggle with competition with Amazon and Audible, with audiobooks. There were competing audiobook services, but people also were reducing their attention spans. So
Yeah.
right now, for example, we have in this generation, like, our 2-hour movie is reduced to a 2-minute TikTok. That's kind of how the attention span is being reduced. With audiobooks, we were finding a similar pattern. So what we had to do is come up with short form content, kind of like podcasts, like maybe half an hour, that kind of content. because we found that a lot of people, they weren't, going to listen to a 15-hour audio book. That was just way too much for them. So there was competition in that sense. At Rapid SOS, there was competition in a different perspective, and so on. So, things like competition, things like finding our niche, finding what makes us unique. In fact, a lot of things about product marketing, so product marketing is about a lot of things, right? So it is identifying who our ideal customers are, doing that research, the market research upfront to find the white space, right? Where can we play? How can we differentiate? And then once we find that niche, we get into the details about what are their pain points, right? So how do we talk to them, and so on. So in fact, one thing interesting, Dan, we can do is maybe on this call, we could try and see how we could apply some of those principles towards the recruiting industry. And maybe that may kickstart some ideas. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a nice idea. Yeah, I mean, it's we operate in a couple of spaces, I guess. So we have a traditional recruitment model, which, is a pay on success. But we also have, funnily enough, a new thing that we're launching, which is recruitment as a service, which is being a product marketer, you might have some opinions on, is a monthly fixed fee, and you can have various tiers of recruitment. It's still in a kind of concept stage at the moment. I think it's beyond the concept stage where we've actually outlined what we think pricing is and things like that. But it would be interesting to get your insights on how you would approach something like that. I mean, it's very sort of service orientated, but we're trying to package it as a product almost.
Yeah. So, if I put my director of product marketing hat on, the way I would look at this is, first, we would identify what are some of the major trends in the recruiting industry. Recruiting has been around for decades, right? I mean, in that sense, it's not new. It's a new take, the recruiting as a service. That's a very cool idea. It's a very new take. So what we would look at is, what are some of the fundamental trends in the industry? Generally, recruiting services tend to do well when the economy is picking up. And, a lot of companies are hiring, right? And everyone needs recruiters. We need to find the right people. So that is one of the fundamental trends that would bode well for a service like this. We also know that the internet and the availability of information, how things are online, that has also significantly changed how recruiting worked. In the olden days, recruiting, a lot of it was doing research about candidates and finding people and talking to people. Now, a lot of that is available online. You can type in someone's name and you can get so much information, maybe not perfect, but a lot of information about them. And people can make qualified decisions about people. Maybe almost like 50% of the decision about whether this person may be a good fit or not can be made just by looking online. And then, of course, you need to, do the balance of the research. There are also some challenges that companies who are looking for recruiting are looking for. So some of these challenges are, for example, it can be very time consuming, right? If, let's say, a company is looking to fill a position, it may be a month, it may be 2 months, 3 months, right? Depending on the position. And that may be very long, right? Because guess what? If it takes 2 months, 3 months to fill a position, you onboard the person. It may take them 2 months, 3 months to get familiar with your offering and actually start contributing. So we may be talking about 6 months. If the clock starts today, it may be 6 months by when this person actually starts producing, right? Which is a huge pain point. So if there are ways that our service could maybe accelerate that, that could be one way that this can be pitched. So some ways that, for example, I've been actually thinking about the recruiting services is I've come across some services where they do the interview process in an asynchronous fashion. And what do we mean by that? So it's not like, let's say, if I'm the candidate and you're, trying to interview me, you don't have to coordinate a time with me. Hey, would Friday at this time work? No, you can essentially have a series of questions that you would like to ask all candidates, right? So let's say you're interviewing 10, 20, 50 candidates for this position, right? By law, I think you're required to kind of ask some, same questions So you can have those questions recorded. Actually, it can be a video of yourself. You can send that out. The candidate will then be able to record their video response, right? And so that they don't cheat, they will only see the question right before they respond. And maybe they get one retake or maybe no retakes, like they get one shot. That's it.
Yeah.
And so, like, have you seen those platforms? And, I'm surprised why those are not more popular. What do you think about that?
So that's very interesting that you say that, because we actually have a system. It's obviously we haven't developed it ourselves. It's a third party. It's for the recruitment industry, but we have for this offering, we have some software that's like a CRM and a database, but it has a client login portal where candidates can make quick. Well, they will make quick videos. And the client will have access to that. So we submit the candidates to the client. They log into the portal, they see their resume, they see all of their details and a little video. So that's interesting that you say that, because that's something that we do have, and it's a facility that we use, and it is quite popular.
Yeah, in fact, I would say that if we try to identify who is the ideal customer, right? That's another product marketing principle. We try to identify who the ideal customer is. For a service like this recruitment as a service, I would say it's probably the small to medium businesses, not like 10,000 employee companies, right? Because they may have much more resources. These are small to medium businesses who may be hiring a recruiter on staff may be cost prohibitive for them, especially in this environment where the economy, especially in the tech sector, is still, shedding jobs. We heard, I think, just a week ago, LinkedIn is also letting go of employees. So it's a challenging time for the tech sector. And so for small and medium businesses, when they see the economic climate like that, they may be averse to actually hiring a recruiter. So this service actually fits in well, where you don't have to hire. And if it is a tech forward platform where it's kind of, recruitment in a box, right? You can put in, hey, here are the job description items. Here are the questions I want candidates, click a button, and within 7 days, you're going to have, maybe 10, 15 candidates respond. And, the hiring manager or the hiring team can actually look at the video and already make educated decisions about, hey, you know what, this person seems really strong, that person, maybe not. And what's another great thing about this is this avoids the need for multiple interviews in many cases. So I remember, at Carbine, when we've hired some of our recent executives, we actually had them record the interview calls, and multiple of us could actually review those calls. So we don't need the person to meet with us again and repeat the same story, right? This is draining on the person. It's also draining on us. It's like, okay, let's do yet another interview. No, do it once. You have the recording. You can review it. And guess what? Sometimes in like 5 minutes, if this person is going to be a fit or not. And maybe you don't have to sit through the whole hour-long interview, right? It's a great time savings for the candidate. It's a time savings for the hiring manager, for the company. It's huge. So I think this will be an important thing to emphasize on. And by making it this kind of a self-service approach, where people can essentially click, type a few things, click a few buttons, and get the thing going, it dramatically reduces the cost to serve the customer. Therefore, the cost that is charged to the customer can be a lot less, right? So this can be like a price-leading service. So yeah, really interesting ideas there.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. I think that was the sort of brainchild of it. We were sort of having a bit of a fever dream about how do we do something a bit different. And as you started the call by saying, as different as industries are, they're kind of the same as well. So the main pain points for recruitment are time, money, and results. They want something quick, cheap, and good, as everybody does. And it's one of those. It's a process that can go on. And obviously we need to work. A client needs to work in conjunction with us, and vice versa. But what we're trying to do is remove as much friction as possible within that, to try and give a budgetable, easy to understand cost to recruitment. So sometimes, generally our fees are around 20% of a yearly salary. So, if you've got somebody that's on $150,000, it's going to cost, $30,000 to hire that person. And it's sort of quite sporadic and it's quite expensive. So we thought, well, why don't we just package that down into a monthly cost that what it's going to be. You can cancel any time, and hopefully it's all going to work out a lot cheaper. So, and using it, as you say, tech first, a tech-led approach, we can remove that friction and save hiring managers time. And what they're buying, as you say, is not one or two people to work in the business. It's, they're going to have to pay 401k, medical, all of this kind of stuff. What they're buying for this package is a team of like 5 or 6 people that are going to be working on their vacancies, and they can just pick it up, put it down whenever they want. Turnkey solution, ready to go. So it sounds good when I say it, but I've got to, let's see if they're queuing around the block for it or not.
Yeah, and I guess another trend that is happening in the recruitment space, or companies in general, is the whole move to this hybrid work setup, where it's not like 100% in office necessarily, especially in the tech sector. It could be 100% remote, or at least maybe a hybrid setup, and that of course makes services like yours even more attractive, because like you said, you're based in the UK and you're serving clients in the US. And in some ways, it almost doesn't matter where someone is, right? As long as they can get the job done, you can, have the business. And if you're able to do that, then that is something that, is benefiting you. Have you found that the recent shift to hybrid work has enabled, services like yours in UK serving US, and how's that work?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, all of the people that we hire are, onshore people, so they'll be in the US and the UK. But yeah, I'm predominantly based in the UK. I do come out to the US a fair bit. But yeah, in answer to your question, yeah, it's really opened the world up. So again, within reason, it doesn't matter where you are, so long as you're delivering the results, which is what anybody cares about, really. I think 1 or 2 people have kind of questioned it, but most people have just accepted it, really. So yeah, it's not a problem at all.
Yeah, in fact, next time, Dan, what you should do is have like a US flag background or something, so that man, you can pretty much say, hey, I'm pretty much as American as it gets.
Yeah,
There
an
you go.
eagle or something like that. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's what you got to keep. That's what you got to keep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And other trends that I've been noticing in the recruitment industry, and I'm curious, how this affects what you're doing here, is the availability of information online, and how that would make one recruiter service more or less competitive with another's, right? So of course there are other services like this. Maybe recruitment as a service is a little bit unique, but how would you describe, let's say, the competitive advantage of, let's say, your offering versus maybe what's out there?
Yeah, exactly. And you made the point earlier, which is a good point, which is kind of the early days of recruitment was very much like the power of your database and how many people you had in your database, and you had access to these people. Whereas, the truth be told, we're all working with essentially the same database these days. We've got, unless you're in a hyper niche area, LinkedIn, we're in, as I say, sales, tech, and marketing. Most of these people are all on LinkedIn. So the competitive advantage there really is not, it's not the database, it's how you interrogate the database, I think. And it's much more about having access to those people. So to give you a rough idea of how we would have a competitive advantage, is the sort of back office people I've got that are not the offshore people. They are constantly engaging in the background with account executives, software developers, and we're constantly kind of sifting through this kind of ether of data and finding out what these candidates are looking for. What are their sales figures? If they're an account executive, they go into a database. We're building relationships with them the whole time, so that when we get a vacancy for some, an account executive in the SAP space or something like that, or MarTech, then we have a pool of candidates to go to that we've already got a relationship with. Because most good people, like software developers, marketers, salespeople, if they're good, they're probably not looking for a job, and they're going to be difficult to engage. But the theory is that we're engaging with these people all of the time, so that they will entertain an opportunity. And in theory, we can get that sort of that extra like top 5% of candidates over to you. And it's the difference between getting a mediocre candidate and getting like an A player candidate that is going to, really kill it in the role. So I guess that would be the answer to that question.
Yeah. And another thing that I've been thinking through regarding this whole recruitment space is the rise of the applicant tracking system, the ATS. And, actually, I was talking with a friend the other day. My friend was impacted by some of these tech layoffs. And so, she was trying to get some help in terms of, hey, how should I think about my next career move? And, she was getting frustrated with these applicant tracking systems and all of that. And she was reading something online. So, I was telling her, look, in a sense, the applicant tracking system, it's almost like a necessary evil, right? If we put ourselves in the shoes of a recruiter, see, these days, it is so ridiculously easy to apply to a position. Like, some of these platforms, they let you apply with one click. You could be sitting in your underwear in your couch, click, 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 applying to random jobs. And on the one hand, okay, it makes it maybe a little bit easier for the candidate, but it makes it so much harder for the hiring manager or the recruiting company, right? Because now you've got to sift through all these things. And so the applicant tracking system, it's a way to filter some of that, low quality stuff so that you are left with a high quality. And then, once it's down, you then can do the manual, you can talk to them and so on, right? Is that kind of how that ATS, the applicant tracking systems work, or?
Yeah, so it's interesting again that you bring that up, because I think this is a bit of a hot topic in recruiting circles. And we talk about, I'm a member of a lot of recruitment groups and know a lot of other people that own recruitment businesses. And I would say these applicant tracking systems they're a bit of a double-edged sword. So there's one that gets a lot of heat called Taleo, and I can see it from both sides. But from my perspective as a recruiter, I think I would rather sift through a lot of applicants, because with, say, let's pick on Taleo, because I've mentioned them, but there's loads of them out there. Big companies like, I think, Deloitte, Accenture, these kind of businesses use them, and they're using them just in isolation. So Accenture will use it for their recruitment, and they think, oh, that's a great idea, let's use that, it'll filter out a load of people. But what happens is, once you've gone through this process once or twice, it starts to get really old, and you have good people that have got their resume, perfectly set up, and then they submit their resume, and then they have to answer like six pages of questions that's all on their resume. So it becomes you're almost filtering out sort of good people, because they just think, oh, I can't be bothered with this, and move on. So I think the key to an applicant tracking system is to have a very simple, as frictionless as possible way of uploading the CV. Maybe a couple of key questions, have you got experience with this? Do you need a work permit? And this, and it's like, 3 questions that you can just click on and go, yeah, great. And it'll filter out people that don't have experience with AWS or whatever it is that you're looking for. So that would be my advice. But I think the applicant tracking systems, I think your friend was probably getting quite frustrated with filling out the same information again and again and again, and it just makes you lose the will to live.
Yeah, it's almost like college applications, like
Exactly.
I also have a nephew who is applying to college, and he's going through some of these challenges where it's like, man, I think there is something such as a common application, but not all universities kind of accept that, and it shows more that you're more earnest if you actually take the effort to apply to each university and write their own essay, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, how much are you interested in this university, or how much are you interested in this job? And the people who are like, you know what, I can't be bothered to do this, maybe that shows something about their work ethic, right? Maybe like when you give them a big project, they'll be like, I'm just going to copy paste, from ChatGPT or something, versus the people who actually take the effort could, maybe be better candidates. And actually, we brought up ChatGPT. How have you found the generative AI and ChatGPT playing into this whole recruitment space? Is that a factor or no?
Yeah, it is a factor. I mean, you see LinkedIn is just awash with ChatGPT generated posts. I mean, I have to admit I was guilty of it in the early days when it just a few months ago when it first really hit the sort of public zeitgeist. I thought it was great, and I thought, oh, this is the answer to all of my content needs. And to some extent it is. I think it has it's helped a lot with, I think, job descriptions. So I think it's a good starting point, shall we say. Like, it's good, it'll help to give you the bare bones, or like a structure for some, maybe some posts or some content or something like that, or a job description. But yeah, I think there's no substitute for kind of doing it yourself. I don't know, how would you feel as an actual marketer? Do you get much kind of mileage out of it, or do you avoid it?
We actually use it. So initially, we were very hesitant because we didn't know, if this would be good or not. But, the more we use it, we find that it is very helpful. And it's not so much about, replacing people. It's more about, look, what used to take a week now takes, maybe a day or two. And
Yeah.
what used to take a day or two maybe takes an hour or two, right? So it's like getting things done much, much faster, so we can do a lot more things in the same time. So it's been really like a force multiplier, where if we use it well, so, some things, in my world, for example, something that it really helps with is, let's say, writing blog articles, right? For any marketing organization, any tech company, actually, if you go to their website, they'll probably have like a blogs section, and they, they write different blog articles. Now, blog articles, they serve a couple of different purposes. One is for search engine optimization, for SEO. The other is for thought leadership, and, for other reasons as well. And so for both of these reasons, what we've found is ChatGPT gives us a great starting point for a lot of the blog articles that we do. But of course, we need that human oversight in order to make sure that it is on point with what we're trying to say. It covers all the factors that we're trying to say. So it's really, again, the way we look at it is like a force multiplier. And a lot of companies, I think, are looking at it that way. Maybe a day will come, who knows, maybe 50 years, 100 years from now, where this thing is going to be totally replacing, everyone. We don't know about that, but that day is not today. So right now, what we're seeing is it's really a force multiplier.
Yeah, and I think I would agree with that. That's kind of how it's evolved in my world as well, in the recruiting sector. It's a good starting point, and I think once you've started using it for a while, and as I alluded to, and when it first came out, I just thought, oh, this is great. I'm not going to have to write any more content, which is actually, not true at all. But as you start using it, you realize that it's only as good as the kind of data it's pulling from. There's a lot of inaccuracies and stuff like that. So, I've asked it for information on certain people before, and it's come back and said where they've been to school and stuff like that, and it wasn't accurate at all. I've no idea where it got that from. So yeah, I think ChatGPT is good. It's scary good when it came out, but I think, let's see what happens in 10 years, because at the moment it's not quite a replacement, as you say.
That's right. Yeah. So I'm curious to know, what would you say is kind of the future of recruiting? If, let's say, you look in your crystal ball, Dan, let's say, 10 years from now, how do you see the recruiting space playing out?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. Because so I've been in recruitment for about 20, in fact, exactly 20 years, sort of.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah. So a while. started in 2003, I think it was, might have been 2002. I'll have to think about that. And in that time, I've seen, the death of recruitment so many times so I joined just as online job boards were like Monster and all of these kind of like JobServe and JobSite and Dice and all of these kind of job boards were there, and people were saying, well, this is going to kill recruitment because employers will just go on there, find people's CVs, and that'll be the end of recruitment. Then we had the rise of all the apps that came out with the iPhone, and they're like, oh yeah, well, there'll be an app for that. Recruiting's dead. Now we've got AI is going to kill recruitment, and I think my honest answer is I don't really know, but I think the human element to recruitment will be there for a while, for the foreseeable future. I think we might look back on this in 10 years and I'll be begging for change outside of Walmart or something. I don't know, but we'll look back on this and see how accurate my prediction is. But I think things like AI will definitely have an impact in sourcing and content, that sort of thing. But I think it will be in conjunction with a human. I think the job will change, but I think there will always be a human element in there because you're dealing with people, and people are an unknown kind of quantity, and people want to hear from people, they want to talk to people, they want to understand. They don't want to talk to a chatbot. They also don't want to talk to this is my prediction, is they won't want to talk to even a computer generated person that looks like you and me, but in the back of your mind it's not a real person. I think there would be some, because how would you know if it's not telling you the truth? And I think with a human being, we always think we can see when someone's not telling the truth, and I think a machine would worry a lot of people. I don't know, maybe I'm just talking about myself, but yeah, I don't, my honest answer is I don't know.
Yeah, and we're seeing, in fact, some of those similar dynamics in our industry as well. So ours is public safety, and many of our customers are these agencies who handle 911 calls. And it's a tough job, if you think about it. You're sitting all day with a headset and you're taking call after call after call after call. And this is a 911 call, an emergency call. Okay, people don't call when they're having a good day. It's usually something very bad that's happening. You're hearing this thing and you're imagining the worst case scenario, and that's just one call, and then on to the next call and the next call. So it's very traumatizing to people. And so they're actually our customers are having a really hard time attracting talent. They have a staffing challenge. So they, are almost in need of like recruitment services. But the other aspect that compounds that challenge is the compensation is not in balance with how stressful and how challenging the job is. So when you have, like a super stressful job, and you have a compensation level that is not in balance with that, not many people want to take that job. And so actually for decades, our industry has suffered with staffing challenges. And, it's hard to see how to overcome that. So companies like us, what we're trying to do is we're trying to find technology solutions. It's like, when some of the restaurants, when they struggle with, hiring waiters and things like that, they use technology. So now you have restaurants where, you can order, actually, there's like a tablet or device at the table. You can actually order. Some restaurants, actually, you can order on your phone while sitting at the restaurant. You can take your phone, there's a QR code, you scan it, you use your phone and order. And it's like, almost you don't need a waiter. And, for some people, that's fine. Other people, they want someone to come to the table, talk to you, tell you about the specials, right? So we're kind of seeing that dynamic in our industry where AI is actually coming in. So at Carbyne, we've actually released some interesting technology where when there is a massive surge in calls, right? So let's say there's a massive car accident. A lot of people are calling in, oh my God, I just see this car, it's on fire, and looks like people are inside, they're hurt, please help. So there's a massive surge in calls, and then the call takers are not able to handle it because they're just overwhelmed. The AI can kick in and it can actually handle some of those calls saying, hey, are you calling about this accident? Okay, we're aware of that accident. If there's additional information, please stay on. Otherwise, thank you for your call. And so that actually helps in these surge situations. AI is also helping in our business with things like language translation. Sometimes you have someone calling in a foreign language, and AI can actually translate that and so on. So AI is coming into our industry as well, but our industry tends to be, because it's public safety, they want to take their time, make sure that the technology is fully vetted before they adopt it. So yeah, interesting. See, back full circle, right? All these industries, your industry and our industry, similar dynamics. How about that? That's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's interesting. I think that's a really good use of AI. And I think, I sort of struggle to see outside of the human element, I think, of my business, but it's changed dramatically since I was started. And there were people at my company that they'd only had computers for a couple of years, and they used, which just seems crazy to me. And they used to work. There was a huge room. Apparently, this is like some recruitment war story now, but there was this huge room apparently that it was like a library just with physical copies of people's CVs in them and resumes, and they were
Oh,
alphabetized.
wow.
Yeah, you'd have to go around and look, and you would fax resumes to people, and you would post resumes to people. And yeah, so I joined thankfully when there was a computer there, so I'm not quite that old, but yeah, it was an interesting time, I think. So
The good
yeah,
old
it's
days.
interesting. In terms of because I think we're sort of coming, I guess, to the end of our conversation, but in terms of your advice really to people, because you've obviously achieved well in your career, you're at a very senior level. If people are looking to come into the marketing space, is there any advice that you can give to younger people that would how to on how to get to the top?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, some of the things that I've learned over my career. One is, it's actually a concept that was shared by Ray Dalio in his book, Principles. And
Hmm.
one of them he says is think like an owner. And for many people who are starting off, this is a little bit difficult, but it's a really valuable life skill to learn, which is think like if you were owning the business, right? What would you want? So don't think, hey, I'm the candidate. So, I want this, I want that. When someone asks you, hey, what would you like to achieve in your next job? Oh, I want a job where, I can achieve work-life balance and, I can do this and that. That's fine. But from the owner's perspective, when they hear things like work-life balance, they think that this person may not be as reliable. If there's something burning, on a weekend, maybe I cannot count on this person. So what I would advise is, think like an owner, think from the other person's perspective, and think what they would like to have for their next candidate coming in. And when you understand that, which is also a product marketing perspective, by the way, right? You're thinking about their pain points. When you understand that, you would then be able to achieve and share how your capabilities can fit what they're looking for. Do that enough times, do that at every job, always be looking to see how you can serve, and you will find that you will continuously climb and you will reach the success that you're looking for. Another thing I would share is be adaptable. Many times, we get fixated, hey, this is what I want to do. And sometimes we realize, maybe after 5 years of doing this, that, what? It's not giving me the happiness that I want. Instead, if we had been more flexible, if we had been willing to pivot, we may find a lot more happiness in what we're looking for. We talked about how earlier I started off with my bachelor's in computer science,
Hmm.
and I found that engineering wasn't really my thing, and I prefer to do marketing and things closer to the customer. In the same way, I would recommend for those starting off, don't be very fixated and close-minded in what you're looking for. Be open-minded, be flexible, and be willing to learn. And you may find that that actually gives you a lot more happiness than maybe what you initially thought. So those would be two pieces of advice. Think like an owner and be adaptable.
solid advice, I think. And I think I'm into my sort of final two interview questions, I would say, which is, I think you've mentioned one, which is Ray Dalio's Principles. Any books that you would recommend, or anything you're reading now that you're particularly enamored with, or anything you'd recommend to people?
Yeah.
Can
So
be-
Ray Dalio's book, Principles, really, really good book. It's I would say it's good for anyone who has a little bit of experience. So maybe for people who are starting off their career, it may be a little bit, advanced, where some of those things may not make sense unless you've actually lived them. For
Yeah.
people who have had a few years under their belt, they've seen things, and then some of the advice will make a little more sense. So Ray Dalio, maybe I would say as later on, one book that I really like is Dale Carnegie's book. It is How to Win Friends and Influence People, and this is actually timeless. It was written decades ago. And again, here's where we need to be open-minded. Someone may look at the book and say, man, this thing was written so long ago, it's irrelevant now. Guess what? It is even more relevant today than it was initially when it was written. A lot of the principles, they are really, really relevant. So, for example, one thing I'd actually recently talked about on my LinkedIn channel is how a person's name is to that person the sweetest, most important sound in any language, right? And it is even more important now, because guess what? Now, a lot of the meetings are like this, virtual, not in person. And many communications are like one-line text messages, Slack messages, one-line emails. And it is so easy to take the wrong meaning, maybe get a little offended, man, they, should have been more polite or so. Using the person's name, when I say, hey, Dan, what I think is this, immediately it snaps you into attention, right? So you hear your name and you're like, hey, and it may make what I have to say a little more manageable, a little more bearable. So that's just one piece of advice. But Dale Carnegie, if you search, you'll find a lot of books by him, a lot of material, and a lot of teachings. So I would say maybe the two books I'd recommend. So Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and then maybe more advanced Principles by Ray Dalio. There you go. 2 book recommendations.
Perfect. And a bit more of a light-hearted question, the last one. If you could have dinner with anyone, either current or past, who would it be and why?
If I could have dinner with anyone current or past, wow, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I always think about so there was there's one person that I think I would like to have dinner with. It's actually a comedian. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, a guy called Bill Hicks, who he died in like 1994, and I was quite into his material, and he was seemed like a really interesting kind of cool guy. So if I could have any sort of opportunity to have dinner with somebody, it would probably be him. But if there's no one you can think of, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Actually, well, right now, probably, given the situation in Israel, and our company has a lot of people in Israel, maybe if I could meet with one of the soldiers and just tell them how much I admire what they're doing and how much I support what they're doing, that would probably be what I would want if I could with anyone. So maybe a soldier who's actually fighting in Israel.
Yeah, fair enough. No, it's it's a crazy situation over there at the moment. So yeah, thank you for dropping in to the Leaders Lounge, Nitin. We'll leave it there. So yeah, we appreciate your time. And if anyone wants to get hold of you, should they reach out to you on Twitter or LinkedIn, or leave you alone?
Yeah, actually, yes. Yeah, thank you, Dan. This was really great. So thanks for having me. And people who want to reach me, find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place you can find me. My name is Nitin Karthik, Nitin Kartik. So you can just search that on LinkedIn and you'll find me. And I like to share advice. If you find it useful, go ahead and follow me. If you would like to ask me any questions, send me a direct message and I'll be happy to help. So there you go.
Thank you. And I can second that as well. I really like your content on LinkedIn. So if you're even remotely interested in anything marketing or anything interesting, give Nitin a follow.